Thank you so much for tuning in to our Lost Artistry Shop the Set. Today I have my client Amelia, who I'm going to be doing a hybrid lash set on. So in this video, we're gonna run through all the troubleshooting necessary to give her this bomb hybrid lash set. So I really hope that you guys enjoy this one. And if you have any questions about this shop the set, by all means, reach out. We'd love to chat.
I've been spending time on my side.
So let's get into our set, the good stuff. So before I begin any set, I always set my clients up for comfort. As you can see, I've already put my blanket on her. I asked her if she's comfortable. We're using our Lost Artistry Lash pillow underneath her head. It's made of foam, so it's really nice because your client can sink in, but it's strong enough that you can lay your palette on the side of it and not worry about when your client moves their head, your stuff falling off or your glue rolling off or anything like that. So it's nice to have an area to work on. It's actually where I have my iPad laid right now. So once your client's all set up, they're comfortable, then my next step is to plan out my set. But here's what I do for every client. So before she came in, I asked her to send me a photo of her eyes close up and a full face photo. And then I took it on my iPad, and I do this for every client until I'm used to them, and then we don't have to worry about that anymore. But it's nice to have records too of what your planning is, so that if a client comes back in like a year, at least you have record of what you've done on that client. Anyhow, so here's my close-up shot of her face. Here's my drawing of her face, the mappings that I think would look really good. And then I always get them to send me an inspiration photo as well. So that's this photo here. So Amelia told me she wants her lashes to look more on the natural side. She wants a lot of texture, and she wants a hybrid lash set. Now, we're gonna get into the set, but first thing I wanna do is talk about the spikes that come out. When you're working with spikes like this, really textured lashes with piecey pieces, there's one thing to look out for. First thing is, how noticeable do you want them to be? If you want them to be really noticeable, you really want to focus on layering. So you're only going to place your extensions on that top layer, which is closest to me while I'm working. So only placing them on the top layer. Now, in order to balance the left eye and the right eye, we really want to make sure that we're placing the exact same length and curl spike on the exact same spot of the eye, on the exact same layer. So there's another little trick here, because I, in the beginning, made this mistake so many times. I would put it in the same spot, I would use the same curl and the same length, but my set would still look wonky. But then what I realized was, so we have layers. So just because the layer that we're working on is the lash that's closest to us while we're working, doesn't mean that that particular lash is sitting at the same point on both sides. So you want to make sure there's no what I call rogue lashes. And rogue lashes are the lashes that will sit higher than other lashes. So let's say it sits about 1 millimeter higher on the eyelid than the other lashes. So we want to look out for those lashes, especially when working with textured lash sets like this one. So I'm going to go through and see if Amelia has any crazy rogue lashes. And I will put a little photo of that in here as well. So she really only has a couple on her top layer, not many, but you will want to look out for this. So here's a photo of what a standard rogue lash looks like. Steer clear of this lash and make sure that when you're placing your spikes that they are all sitting at the same level. Because if we put a lash on one of those rogue natural lashes, then what's going to happen is that lash is going to look much higher and more dramatic than the other. So we want balance from eye to eye. So that's a really nice tip to keep in your back pocket. The next thing I'm looking at is Amelia's natural lash lift. So she has, I've already looked at this, but she has all lifted natural lashes. So I don't really have to worry about working with different curls or anything to lift the eyes up she already has beautiful lift to her natural lashes. So we're not worrying about doing anything crazy there. So let's say Amelia didn't have a perfect canvas to work on. Let's say her bottom layered lashes pointed down into her eyes. Then on that bottom layer, you may want to consider bumping up your curl to maybe a D curl or a DD curl or something like that, just to lift everything up, or maybe an L curl would work as well. Any curls with lift. So that's D, DD, and L for the most part, depending on how severe it is. But for her today, for Amelia, we're going to be working with a mix of C and CC curl. And now when I'm doing a hybrid lash set, I always work with 50% classics or flats. Classics and flats are absolutely interchangeable. But today I'm going to be working with just classics, and I'm going to be working with a 0.15 diameter classic lash because she has beautifully strong natural lashes. I don't want anything overbearing. I wouldn't go up to a 0.2 simply because that's not the aesthetic she's looking for. However, she could handle it. And if you were curious about how to get darkness, but say your client has weaker natural lashes, you can always mix in some flat lashes because they are 40% less weight. But today I am working with that 0.15 diameter classic lash just because that's my preference today and I'm not worried about weight. So 50% of my lashes will be that. Now, how do you place the classic lashes and the volume lashes? So this will be 50% classics, 50% volume. And I'm going to go back and forth. So one lash will have classic, one lash will have volume, and we're gonna interchange like that. So I'm gonna be placing my classic lashes first. Reason being is simply because it is so much easier to isolate later for volume fans that are wider if we apply our classic lashes first. So that's a really nice trick. And today we're going to be working heavily with our feathering technique, and that will also be in this playlist for you to check out. But feathering just means that we're going to be mixing many different lengths of lashes within this set. So we're going to be feathering lots of lengths throughout. Today I'll be working from lengths 7mm all the way up to 13mm. And I'm going to be jumping all over. So I'm not going to really transition slowly between lengths. I won't be going 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Within one section, I could use 7 and 9. And then in another section, I could use 12 and 7. So I'll let you know what I ended up doing afterwards. But I'm really going to play around with a lot of length variations. And that is what's going to give me that super textured appearance. Before we dive into the set, we need to focus on retention. So how do I get 4 to 6 week retention? Here's a trick. First thing I do is start with Lash Bath or Sensi Bath. If my client is sensitive, I will use Sensi Bath, but today I'm working with our Lash Bath. And with that, I need our lash brush, our lash cleansing brush. This is a great thing to sell to your clients later as well for at-home care. But I use it before any service just to get rid of any dirt, debris, makeup, buildup, anything like that. And then after that, I'm going to be diving right into using our Band-Aid, which is our pre-service primer. So I'm going to be applying Band-Aid with a micro swab applicator along the lashes. And again, that's going to make the most perfect environment for adhesion. You're going to notice that by priming before any lash set, that your lash glue will almost act magnetic to the natural lash, which is A, great for efficiency, and B, for retention. Also, if we attach our extensions to debris, oils, anything like that, then once those oils and debris or makeup break down, then so will the bond. So your lashes will fall off prematurely. Lash extensions, I should say, not natural lashes. Anyhow, let's get into the set.
I've been spending time, 'cause time's on my side. And if I make it home, well, our worlds collide, 'cause no one really knows me.
So I've just started working, and now what I'm doing is creating, we'll say, the bones of the set, the skeleton. And that means that I'm creating the base shape. So I am working with a glue ring. Do you have to work with a glue ring? Absolutely not. You can work on the side of you can work with glue, wherever works best for you. So this isn't my suggestion to work with a glue ring, but we do have a really cool glue ring here at Lost Artistry that I've never seen before. And actually, I never wanted to work with glue rings because I was afraid that they would spill on my client. But our Lost Artistry glue rings are spill resistant, so it is very unlikely that that will happen. And it's really nice because it actually speeds up my lashing time because my glue is just right there. And I find with the glue ring I can work with Quickie, but Quickie is what I'm working with today, and I don't often suggest working with Quickie unless you know that you're flying through services in a day. I find that depending on how fast I am on any given day, or my environment, or the service that I'm offering, like let's say I'm doing a lot of direction or learning a new technique, that Quickie is not the glue for that. Quickie cures in 1 second, so it's really for those days that you're flying through. So usually when I'm doing hybrid sets, if I'm not flying through services, I will work with our sensitized glue. It's my preferred glue, but that being said, our Invisibond or our bondage would be wonderful as well. Actually, bondage is definitely our most popular option, but my personal favorite is our Quickie and our sensitize. And a lot of people think that just because we have a sensitive glue that it doesn't have good retention because it has less cyanoacrylate, but in fact Sensitize has just as good of retention as any of our other glues. And it has the nicest consistency with a bonus of it being sensitive. So the next thing I want to talk about is where do I put my, let's say I'm working with different dimensions or different diameters, where would I put each? So we don't actually identify this within our mapping. Like for this set, I'm going to be working with anywhere from 3 to 4D in 0.07 diameter lashes. So with that, the question often is, where do I put my 3D and where do I put my 4D? To answer that, it's all about your client's natural lash health. So I usually use my lower diameter and dimensions on my weaker natural lashes, whatever I stumble upon, and the higher dimensions and diameters on those stronger natural lashes. And when I'm working with hybrids, I do like to, like I said, put my classics on first to make isolation easier, but I also like lashing those finer lashes if possible, because those are the guys that really get in the way when you're lashing, the ones that are so hard to isolate. But if you elongate them by putting an extension on them, then it's much easier because they will move out of the way just like any adult lash would. So that's why I like to do volume after classics for hybrids, to make my job a little bit easier. And I'm working with our Lost Artistry ultra curved tweezers, curved isolation tweezers for isolation right now. That's these gold and black ones. And I'm working with our long curved isolation in our Grippopotamus line for placement, and that is just my preferred tweezer today. I like the curvature of both, and I like using our curved Grippopotamus tweezer for pickup of classics because it has a thicker head at the very top, a thicker tip, and that makes pickup a lot easier versus our curved isolation in our other lines are just a little slimmer at that tip, so that's why I'm choosing each in either hand. And I'm working eye to eye, as I've said before, for balance. Right now I'm working on that top layer, and then I'll move to the bottom layer once I've completed 50% of the top in classics. Then I'll do 50% of the bottom layer. And why I'm doing that is just because if I complete 100% of the bottom and the top layer, then my lash set always looks beautiful and complete. And from there, everything that I get is a bonus. So if I can get 100% coverage, amazing. But if we're pressed for time, then we can always stop. And I know that my client will be very happy with their lashes. I'm also doing my best to make sure that my placement in respect to the skin is consistent. So ideally we have about 0.5 of a millimeter between the skin and the points of adhesion, but 1 millimeter is acceptable as well. Whatever it is, you want to try your best to make sure that it's consistent all the way across, because if you're placing more than that away from the skin, then you're actually throwing off your set a little bit, simply because if you're placing a millimeter up the lash on one side and 2 millimeters on the other, then you're also going to lack in balance from eye to eye.
I don't know, but I've been hanging on for too long, 'cause no one really knows me at all. So help me find my way